I just
What?
got a text
Huh?
from Adam. It says, "Hey, that was a great episode today and a great chat." What do you
What?
mean?
What? Must be from future Adam.
That son of a bitch.
Whoa, hey, listen, you be nice to future Adam. He's got the best ideas.
We must converge the multiverse to find his ideas and learn what we chat about. And with that confusing intro, welcome to this month's episode of the 800s. I am your barely speaking host, Alex, and you've just heard from two versions of my co host, Adam. And as always, the man behind the scenes, Alan, making it happen. Thank you very much. And with that, why don't we do our quick up top plugs and we can get to it?
Yeah, if you heard some music before we got here, that's Fearless First by Incompetech. You should check out everything they have to offer. That's incompetech.filmmusic.io. Otherwise, we are the DMs Table. Head over to dmstable.com to learn all about us. More to come after the show. We'll keep you posted with everything we got going on. But let's talk about what we're gonna talk about.
All right, so this month on the 800s, we will be discussing our Pride Month selection, Cosmic Love at the Multiverse Hair Salon by Annie Mare. Tressa Faye has built a life for herself in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Her hair salon is in constant demand. She has loving friends, a once a week lunch with her dad at the same diner, delicious soup, and her cat Epinephrine. She feels all her needs are met when she gets a text from a number she doesn't know and a number from a time that's already been. Despite the instant chemistry with the woman Meryl, who's on the other line, they are indeed separated by time and the multiverse itself. Tressa Ray faces all that she thought she knew, all that she hadn't dared face before, and more than she could have ever imagined in her search for cosmic love at the Multiverse Hair Salon.
Excellent, excellent. Can't wait to talk about this book.
Let them know how this works, Adam.
um, yeah, sure thing. So, if this is your first time joining us, first off, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are just a discussion show. So, what that means is we're going to talk, and we hope you guys talk too. At any time, if you have something you'd like to talk about cosmic love at the Multiverse Hair Salon, feel free to throw your topic or question in chat, and we'll grab it when the conversation lulls. Otherwise, don't forget to answer the questions we pose and keep it lively.
Also, we're trying to keep it fun and supportive over here at DM's Table, where everybody can feel free to nerd out, geek out, gay out, pride out, without any fear of reprisal or judgment. So, in some, be nice or fuck off. God, trying
Gotta
to
say
do
like
that
you're
when
falling into the time vortex.
fuck off.
With that, let's get the conversation flowing. Alex, chat, Alan behind the scenes. What were your first impressions of Cosmic Love?
All right, DJ Adam. Um, so my first impressions of this book were, um, it really does fit into that like romance novel vibe, just in the way that it's written, but where it was really good at painting a picture of who the main character was, like deep, like what their inner world was like. And I was really curious when the sci-fi bits were going to kick in, and when it did, it wasn't quite what I was expecting. I was expecting something a little more. I guess just from the name, it makes it sound like the multiverse thing is a known element, you know, like the hair salon is. I was expecting aliens and stuff or people from other dimensions walking in and out on a regular basis, but with the tone shifts, it very clearly became a very how the lives of this person and the people around Tressa Ray interact over the course of time and throughout multiverses. So it was a very different vibe from what I was expecting, but I it was a bit slow to start, but when it finally got there, I thought it was pretty well paced for a relatively small book.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I was kind of expecting a by day normal hair salon, some customers, but by night the back door opens to Jupiter. Oh, you know, but
Yeah.
totally wasn't that at all. Um, but yeah, I felt like this author definitely has the gift of gab. It's a very comfortable book to just kind of chill out and listen to. It's got a good rhythm. It's never like super boring. There's not a ton of like crazy details. There's kind of like depending on what kind of book you want to make, there's a line you've got to toe when it comes to science fiction of how much do you want to explain and make your book about explaining it, and how much do you want it to be sorry, how much do you want it to be this thing happens, but also there's this story here.
Mhm.
I think this book did do that kind of well, where it touched on it pretty early on. It was like, yeah, I've got this nerd here who's going to explain multiverse theory, and we're going to go from there.
The exposition nerd, what every book needs.
And every person needs an exposition nerd.
And we have two in our friendship.
Heyo.
uh, but yeah, I like what you said about it's a very comfortable read, and V.S. Drake clearly agrees that it's a very cozy book, and they also agree that it kind of gets you into that mind theater, which I guess, especially from with us being from the Midwest, not really a stretch to sink into what it's like to be in Green Bay. We're just on the other side of Lake Michigan.
Right. So what did you think of our characters here, specifically their progression as things heat up and Tressa Faye starts to get to know Meryl? Do you think
So,
they show good change over time during this relationship, or what do you
well,
think?
considering the circumstances of the relationship, it was like uh way more chill than I think I would have been figuring out something like I totally am more on the Meryl side of things where I would just want to experiment over and over again about stuff. Um, I don't think I would have had the, what was it, 18 miles an hour head down at the stop sign mentality that Meryl did. But, you know, I think that I bring that up though specifically because I think it did a good job of showing how these two characters fit together over time and how they deal with problems and how they come together to deal with them together. Um, yeah, V.S. Drake, absolutely, it does tell you who Meryl is. It was a very good metaphor for how she goes about life, and that she kind of needed somebody in her life who was going to both support her in that, but also be there with you know, the mattress at the end of the street, you know. But in the same way, she also was a character that would plow through things that Tressa Ray would want to back away from. And they both brought out these things in each other. And I think this book did a uniquely good job of showing what their personal roadblocks were to the kind of to a healthy relationship that had prevented them from being with the people that had come before, and that made them ready to be together and to ultimately apparently collapse all multiverses so that they could, or try to collapse all the multiverses so that they could be together in the one that they could. And it was very, I think part of what made this book so unique though was it was interesting to see how much of it was stuff that was intrinsic to them versus the stuff that was intrinsic to the situation. And the situation stuff we got to see in a weird way phase in and out because of the nature of how the multiverse works in this book, which we'll talk a bit more about later. It's something I want to ask about, but I thought it, I thought their character progressions were fairly realistic for two people who had been hurt pretty badly before, who found something in each other after they had done clearly quite a lot of work, but still needed a little bit of a hump to get over to really be ready for it. And it showed, like, it's rare to see characters show this much like depth of maturity, which was interesting to read to me.
Yeah, I agree with that depth of maturity. Um, there were a lot of themes to the two characters' relationship throughout the book. Like, how do you deal with the fact that um, your significant other is hanging out with someone you very much, or is essentially dating somebody you very much view as not you, when it is you, but it's also not you. Um, and
Yeah,
the
talk about
opposite
the mind
side,
fuck.
right? The opposite side of where Meryl is like, it's I've built this relationship with this person and I can't fulfill my needs with the relationship I have right now. So I'm going to fulfill them with this other kind of the same person. It's kind of an interesting theme with, like, how do you rationalize that? How do you be okay with it? Um, take kind of takes a glance into the polyamory lifestyle and what all that means to be truly poly. And yeah, anyway, other than that though, I felt like it was interesting to see kind of like Meryl had to learn to let go, where Tressa Faye had to learn to embrace love again. Is kind of how I viewed their two mindsets. Um, and I feel like that played out really, really well, especially the deeper we got into the book.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know about it being like analogous to polyamory necessarily, but I mean, it does push up against it, but because we specifically get that friend who is poly, uh and her description of it, I think that was important that they have those juxtapositions in this book to show that it touches up against it, but it's not quite the same thing. And I thought it was really interesting how all of the surrounding characters played a part in helping each of these characters figure out the things that they needed to figure out, to wit, the things that you, I think, hit the nail on the head, the two things that they needed to work on. Uh, Via Drake says that they love how Annie Mare made this relationship feel wholesome and real. And I think the prose of this book also helped with that. It just felt very, for something that was anchored in the multiverse, felt weirdly grounded. It is kind of like a long distance on steroids because, at least with long distance, it's like, hey, let's save up for a plane ticket. Whereas this is kind of like, hey, let's hope that planes exist in 5 months. you know, and but it does touch on like what is it like to know that somebody feels right for you when you haven't really met them, but in a way you have. Your lives have impacted each other. To that end, though, I would like to ask you, what did you think about how the supporting cast was used in relationship to the main romantic couple?
Um, yeah, so a couple of the chapters had me confused at first. Specifically the perspective chapters where it was like they're meeting or they're discussing how Tressa Faye and Meryl met, and it was different every time, just a little bit. And at first I was like, did I misremember? How does what is going on here? Did I forget something that happened earlier? Then I realized, oh, it's like a whole multiverse thing, like filling in the gaps of the multiverse, manyverse kind of deal. I thought that played out kind of cool. And I also liked how um diverse the different relationships were for the behind the scenes characters. Kind of it so in my mind it's what makes the hair salon uh more metaphorically multiverse is all the people at the hair salon end up going out and having their own version of love and find their way to express how they feel in their own way. I'm not very eloquent tonight.
It's all right. I get what you mean. Uh, I agree. The perspective shifting stuff was a bit weird, and I found myself wondering a lot about like why, like at least initially, why were those perspective shifts happening? I mean, I got Meryl and Tressa Ray, but the other characters, it just felt kind of random the way that they would show up. But everything that happened that felt random was either referenced later, tied into something else, or helped the romance or the understanding of how the multiverse worked move along. And I thought that was a really interesting way of showing but not telling when you're in something as complex as as this multiverse theory, which in the end, like kind of retrospectively, kind of makes the confusion understandable because if you're not confused at the beginning of it, you're fucking lying. Um, or you're like Carl Sagan or something. You know, but it was really interesting to see, like you said, about how their romances, how their lives interwove with the lives of Tressa Ray and Meryl and affected them in these either tiny little ways or showed from an outside perspective of like how the universe mends itself to the, for lack of a better term, the will of these two characters to love each other. And I think that brings a certain power to the love story in a way that is indirect but very interesting. Sorry, am I saying Ray or Faye?
You
Because
are.
sorry, my bad. I know somebody named Tessa Ray, and it is throwing me off. Tressa Faye. Sorry. And, but Tressa Faye and Meryl having friends that are integral to their lives. Like, I really like that bit about how Gail remembers more because there's no universe where she exists that Meryl doesn't. And Tressa Faye remembers more because she's so like she is the connection, like her phone and Meryl's are the connections between these multiverses. But then you get characters who are more tangentially related, like James and Guy and Mike, and they find themselves kind of forgetting stuff in a very deja vu kind of way, where things that is initially exist as always were sorry, both things always were to only one thing ever was. And
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool way of these people showing that they still belong their lives and affect their lives, but ultimately it's how you kind of keep your it was an interesting way of keeping the focus on Tressa Faye and Meryl through the lens of the friends, which was sounds weird, but it kind of makes sense in the book.
Yeah.
Um,
So what didn't you like about this book?
well, first off, I don't think people freaked out enough about what the fuck was going on. Like it just I think that might have been one of my biggest bothersome bits. It's just like, yeah, we've connected to the multiverse. And you have one chat with your witchy lesbian poly friend, or however it is it that they described her. Uh, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I get there was a preponderance of evidence there, but at the same time, I don't know, it just felt a little glossed over. Um, it does come back again at the end of the book, which I liked, but it felt like it didn't affect enough of the stuff throughout the story. It just kind of felt kind of a little bit thrown on at the end of like, oh yeah, that thing. We'll resolve it at the end. You know. Um Other than that, I mean, there's the usual things that I have with romance books of I was like, I was always this way, but all of a sudden I'm not. This book did a better job of not letting that just be, but there were still a little bit of the elements of like Tressafe was just like, I have my routines and I like them, but fuck it. um, you know, again, it gets resolved at the end, but there's a little bit of wonkiness in the middle that I think felt a little weird. Uh, you know, as usual, I mean, I don't know if usual is the right word for it, but uh, I think I was waiting for more of a speed bump in the relationship, and it never really felt like or like it came up eventually, but I don't know. There's a lull in the middle where I was just like, this just feels like them kind of describing stuff, and so it was kind of one of those books that went up and then lulled and then went up again a little bit. So the pacing, I guess, was a bit weird in the middle. Like
Yeah.
it was a bit slow, gets really good, and then kind of mires through the middle. But like it's it's kind of like all the anticipation of going to the beach, and then a good chunk of the book is just describing the walk to the beach, and then you get all the description of all the fun that happens at the beach, you know. So I guess the weakest point I would say is like the middle of the book. Yeah, VS Strike, that's kind of part of where the part where uh the original time Tressafe and Meryl uh, are not speaking to each other. All we hear is it's the, you know, Tressafe texting from the future or whatever. and I wanted, I guess, a little bit more from that future. It could be that it was just a way of saying that that timeline is kind of fading as it kind of gets absorbed by this primary timeline where they are together. But I guess that could have been a little more clear.
Yeah. Yeah, so my biggest gripe was the hand waving.
Hmm.
Um, at first I just thought it was a blatant disregard for sci-fi, where it was like, all right, we got the sci-fi out of the way, now let's do the romance bit. Um, but no, at near the end, we get a moment where Pearl's sister mentions like she's asked Tressa Fay to pass along things to have herself try that day. And then she finds out if they work or not because she's in the future. And it says she tried a gazillion things, but it just whoosh, just hand wove it. Just, I've tried so many things and she always disappears. It's like exactly how it goes. And it's just like, try the things. What are you doing? What do you mean I tried so many things? Try the things.
Yeah,
um
that's another one. I didn't really know how to describe it, but thank you for bringing that one up.
but no, that, but going back to my previous point about like where do you draw the line, depending on what kind of book you're trying to make. This is definitely I want to make a romance book, not a I want to make a sci-fi book with romance.
Yeah, this
um
is a romance book with sci-fi elements.
yeah, so knowing that, like, I get it, like, you gotta kind of ignore it to some extent, that way you don't absolutely bore your audience with the details.
Yeah,
um but I would have liked more, or at least a consistent reminder that they're trying things throughout the story.
yeah, you kind of get that with Meryl because she's the scientist and she's always trying, but like all we really see is her just essentially forging connections. And it got to the point that, to your point about it not really being a sci-fi novel, I thought the twist at the end was going to be that this was just a metaphor for how they got through their troubles in their relationship, like they had like a separation or something,
Yeah.
like, and in that way it got a bit distracting for me because I was just like, okay, they're ignoring so much of the sci-fi element. What is the twist that is going to be that makes this not sci-fi? And I think that could have been handled better as well. Yeah, we all got nervous via Strick at Meryl.
Man, I don't know, I think she could have poked harder. I think she should
Oh,
have poked harder. She
oh.
didn't once ask for lotto numbers.
Yeah, it's relatively minor. I mean, like, we're talking fairly nitpicky for what this book was. I mean, once you discuss, I think you put it best, Adam. Like, once you settle into the fact that this is a romance novel with sci-fi elements and not a sci-fi novel with romance elements, it shifts the perspective a bit. And that's probably our fault for both of us going into it thinking that she was going to own a hair salon that had a door to the entire multiverse.
Yeah. Well,
But to that end, what did you think about the metaphor of the multiverse for like in its relation to how romances work, especially those that are a bit fraught?
I think that's what I liked about thinking about the title better than imagining it as a sci-fi book, is imagining it as this is a book about accepting yourself and your own feelings, and not letting you know, specific factors for Tressa Faye, it was her past. For Meryl, it was the idea of what she wanted. Um, stand in the way of accepting what you want. And in that way, I consider it a multiverse hair salon because Tressa Faye and everybody involved at the hair salon go out and live their lives the way they live them, and they don't let nobody tell them to go get a $20 Great Clips haircut.
Yeah, I basically word for word one of my takes on the metaphorical and allegorical use in the multiverse, so I won't go more into it. Nicely done, Adam. I do want to talk a bit more about what Vias Drake's talking about, not the fact that they have the smoothest of brains, but that was really funny. Um, um, the whole fated lovers trope, like what is fate and what is choice? Where does free will come in? And when is it just destined to be? And I thought the multiverse did a really good job of showing that there are things that can feel fated that do still take effort to bring into existence. And it shows how fate and free will can merge together in the way that Meryl, what she needs is to be able to let people in. And what does she have to do? She has to forge connections. She has to bring universes in. And what does Tressa Faye need to do? But she needs to let go. She needs to let go of loss. She needs to let go of her ties to her past that keep her from fully being in relationships and understanding her wants and needs in them. And she has to let go of potentially even herself in a way that doesn't, not the person that she is, but the person who that she thought she wanted to be. This person in the future who was comfortable just eating soup, hanging out with epinephrine, and saying, fuck you guys, I'm not going out tonight. And I think it does a good job of explaining, yeah, it helps explain the trope instead of demanding that you just accept it. That's a perfect way of putting it via Drake. It helps explain that it gives you a reason to root for fate instead of being like, I find myself when things are fated to be like, that feels a bit hand wavy or resisting against it because, like, then what about free will? And this did a good job of making these people feel like they were always meant to be, but they were only always meant to be because they kept choosing each other again and again and again. And that's what makes those sorts of romances work in a way that, like, when we've read other romance novels, it kind of just feels like because of story structure that these two people are going to wind up together, and you kind of fit the puzzle pieces to make the picture a bit, but it kind of feels like, but I've already got the picture on the front of the box. Why do I need the puzzle? Um, whereas this one, the puzzle actually felt fun to do, you know, in the way that, at least for me, puzzles do. Maybe a bit more like Legos than puzzles, because the characters were three-dimensional. What a world. Oh, sorry about that.
You good?
Yeah. Do you have any more questions, or do you want to try to wrap it up into final thoughts?
I'm pretty tapped. I'm ready for final thoughts if you are.
All right, let's roll right into it. Oh,
Okay.
hold on. VS Drake has something they want, so let's go into that. This book, they say that this book was really tastefully LGBTQ plus. It was not a bash on cisgender or non-binary people, and it wasn't soapboxing. So, what did you think of the LGBTQ representation as a hetero cis white male?
What was the question?
What did you think of the LGBTQ plus representation in this book, in this romance book?
Yeah, I think that's something we've kind of covered tonight. There's a lot of varied representation in this book. Um, and I really think, if I were to pick an underlying theme for this book, it would be that um you should love how you want to love and not let things stand in your way. There's a lot more to my
Yeah, I'll read the rest of it. Sorry, I was waiting for Adam to finish, but so it said, Via Strike said that it was, in their opinion, a masterclass in showing new perspective to people without demonizing or preaching. Show people just being people. I think her dad was a perfect place that other lesser authors could have soapboxed and hated on cisgender love. Instead, this author was true to the core and lived the love is love message. I would agree. Honestly, I think, to your point, like I had the same thought, is that other than when it was like explicitly mentioned in things like guys top surgery, or the fact that they were or the fact that Lynn's is the, the witchy lesbian, like mostly this just felt like a group of friends trying to help a friend find love, and just being there for each other, and it showed community and how they're just people. And it not only showed cisgender love through the dad, but also what it means for somebody who is religious to love and accept somebody for who they are, and that religion itself doesn't have to necessarily inherently be a barrier. It's just people who are bigoted who are the barrier. And it was really refreshing to see that, because it would be very easy to turn the dad into the villain, the person who made Tressa Faye, afraid to be herself. It does show that she was afraid to come out to him, but not because she was afraid that he wouldn't love her. And I thought it was a really good way to show maybe people who don't know how to do it, how to be there for somebody who is trying to come out. Um, I myself am not a part, like, I like to think I'm an ally, but I'm not anything but hetero cis white male. So I don't know what it's like to live those things, but I know enough people who have gone through them to know how badly those things can go. And a lot of it comes from fear and misunderstanding, and this bridging those gaps, I thought, was a really big part of this book that was handled with a lot of nuance that I appreciated.
Yeah.
And like you said, good diversity of people too. It wasn't just it, it's a book about lesbians, so it's all lesbians, or it was everybody across the spectrum.
Yeah. Nop notch. Nope, it was nop notch messaging. That's what it
Yep,
was.
top notch, top notch.
All
Why don't we get
right.
into
Final,
final thoughts?
yeah, final thoughts. Would you like to go first? You want me to go first?
uh, I can go first this time.
All right.
So ultimately, I think this was a very good, like, I know it's next month's theme, but I thought this was a very good beach read type of book. It might be my favorite romance that we've read to date, like, or my favorite mainly romance book. And not just because the sex scenes weren't like all over the place. Like, it was nice that the sex scenes felt earned, and that they weren't just thrown in there to be horny. um I thought it showed very realistic love between any two people, let alone, two people who have the struggles of being a part of a marginalized community. I thought it had very good representation, decent flow. kind of ebbs a bit in the middle and could have used a bit more of a pace picker upper, but we're nitpicking there. Ultimately, I thought this was a very good romance book that I think just about anybody who could enjoy who isn't, just a total hater. Maybe could have used a bit more on the plot pedal, but not bad, all things considered, as long as you go into it with this is a romance with, again, this is a romance with sci-fi elements, not a sci-fi book with romance elements. And as long as you go into it with that, I think this was a book that I would definitely recommend. Yeah, it made the love feel very real.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to give a very mixed review. I'm going to give high praise and also high disdain.
All right.
We'll start with the good, the praise. Like you said, great romance. In my opinion, this is what a romance book should be. I know there's a specific audience that really loves the heavy smut, crazy sex scenes and can't get enough of them. That's not me.
Me neither.
I enjoyed like a book or two of that where I was like, oh yeah, okay, I get it now. But like a lot of them are real similar and don't really express themselves in a unique way. Where this book was very unique. It showed a lot of different angles about romance. The characters felt extremely real. Very, very deep characters, not just the main characters, but side characters, although didn't share the light as much as some books. They felt real and not hollow, which was really good. The disdain part, though. We've mentioned a few times tonight, this is a romance with sci-fi parts. Just because you're a romance book doesn't mean you can just fuck all off on the sci-fi part.
Yeah.
You can't start a story and then you're just like, I don't know, fuck it, they win. The end. There was no explanation for what the fuck was going on. There was no, yes, finally I understand, because there was nothing to understand.
I'm sorry. Via Straight got you good on this one.
That's exactly right. I was waiting. I was waiting for the climax, and I never I mean, the book never came to it. So yeah, it's definitely a romance book with sci-fi aspects, but damn man, the sci-fi part just didn't deliver, and ugh. Anyway, so yeah, extreme disdain for the sci-fi aspect. It should have been better explained. There should have been better pacing with it. There should have been something at the end to explain what was going on, and there just wasn't. So yeah. Overall, though, I thought it was an enjoyable read. Very
all blue balls aside,
engaging, and I got through it really, really quick, which is a good sign. So.
But yeah, sounds like that is more or less the consensus. So why don't we go ahead and get into our
sci-fi book.
let's announce our books for the next week and then get into the plug.
Sure thing. All right, so we already know July 18th is Casino Royale. Sorry, doing the clickety-clickities because I didn't prepare ahead of time like I usually do. And after that, August 1st, Locklands by Robert Jackson Bennett.
Finishing off the Founders trilogy for our sequels, prequels, and side quells for the three-quarter quell.
Definitely definitely gonna listen to all of the books So I'll have to get crunching soon here.
Yeah, I definitely will be too. We will be doing our back to school schools books again. October is going to be horror. Like let's be real, guys. Why not? And then if you have any thoughts about what we should do for November, because as usual, December will be our redemption books, let us know. And horror. You're missing the W there, Via Strike. Smutty Halloween.
I think V.S. Drake found his niche.
All right. So with that, why don't you go ahead and do our plugs and
Yeah.
wrap it up for the night?
Yeah, let's do some quick plugs. We'll talk about side pieces and then dip. A couple of streaming platforms you guys should check out. We have a YouTube channel. You may be watching us right now from our YouTube channel. If so, thank you for watching our YouTube videos. If not, you're probably watching us on Twitch, in which case the YouTube link is below your video. We are the DM's Table on YouTube. Audible is our preferred listening platform. You should check them out. Head over to dmstable.com/audible for a free trial and to let Amazon know to pad our pockets. Speaking of dmstable.com, that's where you can go to learn all about us. You should head over there if you want to tone me out and find more later. dmstable.com, one more time. We also have a couple of socials on Facebook. We're at the DM's Table, and X, we're at DM's Table. We also have a Discord, which you can join if you would like. Hit us up on our socials, and we'll get you that link. Patreon. Oh my gosh, I skipped right over Patreon. I don't know how. You should check out Patreon. The link is below your video if you're on Twitch. We are the DM's Table on Patreon. That's how we do book votes for our next stream. As well as other stuff. Book voting is free though, so feel free to check that out at any time. Cast a vote, tell us what to read. It's the cool thing to do. Make sure you're cool. Otherwise, that's pretty much it for plugs from us.
All right, so let's get into them sad pieces. Adam, who you been cheating on our book with?
Oh my gosh, I was a slut this month. Let me tell you about it. So I finished this book and I was like, where the fuck is the sci-fi? So I picked up Dungeon Crawler Carl, The Parade of Horribles, and blasted the shit through that. And oh, did it feel good. That book was awesome. Highly recommend. Definitely go check out that. After that, I gave romance a shot again and headed over to one of my wife's suggestions, Butcher and Blackbird, which is a smutty romance, of a very murdery, slutty romance book. So yeah, it's interesting.
There's a lot of stabbing. Wink.
Yeah, of multiple knife or other varieties.
Penetration. Hey-o.
Yes. After that, I picked up He Who Fights with Monsters, a lit RPG adventure. This was a recommendation based off of Dungeon Crawler Carl. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I am thoroughly through it. It is a large book, so it does take some time to get through. Yeah, so far I'd say pretty good. I don't know if I'd rate it as good as Dungeon Crawler Carl, but definitely worth a listen if you're interested in the lit RPG genre. What'd you listen to or read or both?
Quick little thing, as I have read the first 4 books of He Who Fights with Monsters. It is much more, I think, resemblant of what lit RPG really is compared to Dungeon Crawler Carl, because Dungeon Crawler Carl is like unfairly good as like a book as a whole. I think Hugh Fights with Monsters is like a good lit RPG book, but it's just there's a tier above that Denimans and um but it is, I think, worth a listen for people who like the lit RPG kind of realm. I think it is on the upper end of what you find in that genre. As for me, um
Oh my gosh, sorry, I gotta interrupt. I also read the latest Arcane Ascension book. I totally forgot.
yes, via
It
straight.
was pretty good.
Arcane's Ascension's on my list for a little bit later. I too cruised through the latest Dungeon Crawler Carl Parade of Horribles twice, in fact. I have read books 5, 6, and I'm making my way through book 9 of the Horus Heresy, uh, which, by the way, I did not realize this. I thought there was like 20 something books in it because the list that I saw accidentally cut off. Refresh it. 42 books in the series. So I finally found somebody who's like, here's the essentials of it. And it's like the first three, absolutely. 4 and 5 are recommended. 6 is maybe. And then it's like 9, 12. There's one in the 30s and then 41, 42. So that's what I'll be reading. And then I'm going to go after Arcane Ascension. um, I also
That's
read
a long list.
I also read a book called The Serviceberry by it was one that was given to me by my mom. Uh it's a very cozy kind of uh I would say naturalistic philosophic kind of read, pretty well outside of what we do for the most part in the 800s, but I think people could get something good out of it. Um, and I'm pretty sure there was one other that I'm also forgetting, but uh, yeah, yeah, I'll bring it up next time then instead.
See, for me, you just gotta get a list, see?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to bring up is my list. See, da, 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 da.
While he's doing that, A Brief History of Chronomancy, in my opinion, was better than the previous book in the series, which was probably the worst book of the series. It it was pretty good. It was incredibly entertaining. We're really back to the core of Corin figuring shit out and doing crazy stuff. Um, yeah, Tower Crawl Central for History of Chronomancy. It was really good. Can't wait for the next one. The next one's definitely going to be like a huge book, so can't wait.
Well, yeah, so the one that I read was just I read the original Treasure Island. Like it's been a very I've only ever read like interpretations like that have been modernized or something. So I just went ahead and read that one because it was like 2 hours long and I needed something to listen to at the end of a work shift. So
Nice.
all right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this month. We look forward to seeing you for our beach reads, and everybody enjoy your summers, and we'll see you next book.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. See you guys next book. I've got